Okay, so we are now in part 2 of this process, and you'll notice something. I deleted the sideburns, and we are now creating a hair cap. What a hair cap does is it covers the majority of the head, so it allows you to save on geometry. If you don't want like that high geometry, then you're going to build a cap. And right now I'm going to actually put up on screen of the process that I do for creating the cap. But essentially you just want to make it as basic as you possibly can, and then you're going to kind of go off of that. As you can see, it also creates a really nice part in the head, and we are kind of just dragging that down. It doesn't have to be the most beautiful thing, since it's going to be hidden by a lot of layers of hair, but essentially this is a really good method for hiding a lot of the head. I've seen a lot of artists do this where they create a big fat geometry piece for the hair cap, and they use that to hide a majority of the head. As you can see, I'm using a plane, a polyplane, to achieve this, because using new geometry is really hard for UVing it back to UVing the hair. So using a polyplane that I already have, and then kind of just using the polyplane strips to UV that, it helped me save a lot of time. So if you can model a polyplane using the poly strips that you have, then do that, because it helps you save a lot of time. Not to mention it is using the same textures, so that's also a plus, because now I don't have to create like a geometry cap texture for this. It's already set up with a cap. And as you can see, I'm putting it fairly close to the head because I want it to be the base for me to lay the hair over. The goal of the hair cap is to cover the head, so as you can see, I'm adding geometry and kind of pushing that closer to the head so that it will allow me to cover more of the head from different angles. So this was really tough. As you can see right here, I'm scaling the poly strips to get the hair textures closer to the ends. But this was really tough because I did choose a really tough head to do this with, because heads with horns is really hard to figure out how to do, how to put the poly strips and the cap around. So as you can see right here, these weren't flowing right, so I ended up just deleting them. I did overall try to get them to flow right, but I ended up, I think I deleted them. Otherwise, yeah, I just maneuvered them a little bit better. If I didn't delete them, then I maneuvered them a little bit better to look better with the hair cap, and transitioning with the hair cap flow. I broke this piece off to make the hair cap extend around the horns. So as you can see, those parts, those roots, are going to extend around the horns. And then I end up shoving this underneath the hair cap because, yeah, there's no way that I'm going to, sit there and spend all my time trying to figure out how to connect this to the hair cap. So I just ended up shoving this one underneath the hair cap itself, and, just kind of forgot about it. But yeah, just doing this kind of stuff will really help you with covering the head. And I highly suggest it. If you're trying to put just strips on your character, then it's going to be really hard to cover the head. So I ended up just doing this, and it covered 90% more of the head than I anticipated. So as you can see, this is where I'm adding extra loops in here. I usually tend to like to have this a little bit less polygons than average, because you're not going to see this. But I did want to be able to cover the piece that I made, so I just ended up adding a loop or two in there, and it helped. Now we're using this to cover the head, and as you can see, I'm just like, I think I just like delete all of these except for maybe one or two, and then I just like adjust them, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I ended up deleting like all of them except for two, and then I ended up just kind of going back in there and redoing the sides. which is something that you might do. You know, it's often like you'll go back in there and you'll change something and you don't like it, so you might change it again. And it's like I said, it's like a zen. You want to think of this like a bonsai. You're kind of just like sculpting the hair in this method. Here I am trying to place another layer over it, a bigger, fatter piece that ultimately will cover more of the head, more of the cap as well, and that will transition down. So we're going to be doing this a lot. We're going to be grabbing layers and then just kind of looping them down. And then I just duplicate that one off and I try to see if I can transition that a little bit better. You'll notice that a lot of this stuff in the final result will not be in the final result, because I did do a lot of tweaking off of camera. I did do a lot of adjustments off of the camera, because it's a lot easier to sit there and look at it when you think you're finished with it, to just kind of sit there and look at it and be like, okay, what could I do better, or what could I change a little bit, or what could I tweak to make it look a little bit better. So the final result didn't look as good as I wanted it to, so I ended up like kind of just sitting there and looking at it. And ultimately I did do a lot of the tweaking on camera, but a majority of the tweaking I did off of camera. So as you can see now, I'm transitioning those hairs to kind of hopefully try to blend those in with the hairs that are going up towards the top of the head. And again, horns on the head are a lot harder to do because you have to figure out how you're gonna, you know, place the hair cards around the horns. But I think ultimately, I think it did pretty good. And yeah. So here I am again, just duplicating a piece off. And I don't keep the entire piece of this. I split it off right here, and then I go in and I think I delete a majority of it. And I think I connect it to the hair cap, and that's it becomes a hair cap piece. Yeah, I ended up deleting like 90% of this thing and just keeping, you know, a few polygons of it. And I actually did re-UV it as well because you know, pushing and pulling this stuff around, and then also ultimately like connecting the verts and getting triangles, it caused the UVs to kind of skew. So I ended up re-UVing it because yeah, it's better to just like go in there and re-UV it than to keep a mess. Now again, nobody's gonna see this because there's gonna be layers on top of it, but it's just one of those things that's like a nitpicky thing. As you can see, I just deleted part of it. And I'm tucking this in and re-UVing it right here, and then we're just kind of spreading these around to see if I can't get them to be the same size as the other strands and a little less like skewed as well. But as you can see, it is very, very skewed right here, so I end up just completely re-UVing it and trying to make the skewing a lot less. Sorry, my allergies have been crazy. It feels like I just got a rash in my face, and it just sucks. So I can't breathe, and it's just like miserable. But yeah, then I just go in there and just kind of place it. Don't be afraid to work with pieces. You know, you don't have to make everything like a perfect strip. You can just make some pieces and just cover the hair, or excuse me, cover the head. And as you can see right here, I'm just kind of dragging this down to get it to be more where the roots are. And then I kind of just like pull the triangle down through and tuck it in. So again, this is just modeling it. It's just literally, this is all it is. It's just modeling pieces and then unwrapping it to the hair. That's all I'm doing. That's what I've been doing this entire time. And you can see the hair part is extremely wide, and we actually fix that when we start to add more layers. We actually fix that more and more. We get it closer and closer together. So yeah, just taking this and trying to transition these. What I did here was I duplicated a piece, and then I Alt-S to push it above the other ones, and now I'm trying to transition that hair to flow more in the direction towards the front of the head. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it looks weird, but ultimately it's all up until you do something. You're not gonna know what it's gonna look like until you do it. So you know, I'm just sitting here testing things out, and I think I do keep this. I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember. It's actually been a while since I've done this part. But yeah, and then ultimately, you know, I'm just trying to push these more towards the head, trying to get those roots closer to the part, trying to get it closed more. Curling the polyplane around to make it look like it's more natural hair. And you can see the thin strands are really helping to make this look a little bit more believable, like it's more like it's believable hair. And you'll notice, like, in the final result, in the teaser that I uploaded, the hair is actually, it's not always flat. It's flat on some parts, and then other parts it's got like a little bit of thickness. That was something that I chose to do because I wanted certain parts to be more thicker because they weren't covering as much as I wanted. So I ended up just duplicating it off and then pushing, like in the last video, I ended up duplicating it, like we did with the sideburns, duplicating it, and then pushing the mid inwards to make it more like it's inflated. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, definitely refer back to the first tutorial, because that one I explain what I did, but I did that with a few of these, and this is all just subjective. Like, I kind of referenced a pineapple when I was doing this, because I was like, how does a pineapple layered? And they layer it kind of like this, you know, it's like a pineapple kind of style, where it's like, or a palm tree style, where it's like the palm fronds are like, you know, layered, and then they kind of curl up. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm just like layering it, and you can see I don't really care about the roots. I don't care if the roots are blending with the cap, because you're never going to see these roots because they're going to be covered with another layer over them. So don't worry too much about the roots on these, because they'll be covered. They'll be covered more. And duplicating it off and then just kind of adjusting it again with the tabbing. You know, you want to invert your selection. You know that you duplicate it off, you invert your selection, and then you hide everything else that you're selecting. And then when you press tab, that will allow you to see your progress. So you don't always have to have everything visible when you're doing this. Here you can see again, I just duplicated it off, created another layer. I did flatten this down a little bit because, again, we are going to be adding more layers to it, but ultimately at some point you want to start puffing out the roots more, a little bit more, you know, kind of getting that natural kind of puffiness. If you're doing female hair, you kind of want to have that kind of root like kind of puffing out a little bit, especially with a hairstyle like this. It just looks more natural. It looks like the hair is, you know, obviously more layered instead of just like flat and heavy. It looks like it has bounce to it. And I am using mirror modifier to get the other side done, because honestly it's a lot faster. I'm not going to sit here and try to make an excuse like, oh yeah, you know, I just wanted to just get this done and over with. No, it's a lot faster. It's hella faster. Use mirror modifier whenever you can, because people are going to tell you, you know, symmetry, you know, you need to break the symmetry and shit like that. Like, you could break the symmetry, but ultimately when you're getting a haircut, you're not telling the barber, hey, can you please break the symmetry on my hair? You know, you get a haircut, you're hoping for symmetry. You know, you're hoping that the barber gives you an even haircut on both sides. So that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm just making it even on both sides. I'm not doing anything special with this haircut. It's not like, you know, a swept over look or flowing in one direction. It is just a basic anime hair. And then what I'm going to do later on, after, you know, I start posing the character, is I'm going to break the symmetry. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to start moving these around to break the symmetry. So, you know, you can sit here and you can model it with symmetry on and then break the symmetry when you start to pose the character, when you have everything like rigged and shit. Okay? Because it's a lot easier to rig both sides when you have, like, when it's literally symmetrized. And that goes for if you actually are going to be rigging the hair. If you're not and you're just going to let, like, you know, gravity or whatever do its thing, then there's really no point to breaking the symmetry. There's no point in breaking the symmetry because you're just going to let physics do it. All right, and you can see that this is very strategic. The shape of these hair cards is very strategic. Again, we're bubbling out the middle of the hair card, pushing down the sides to create more volume, to create that effect that it's covering more. So you'll see, like, later on I actually start to push the sides down when it comes off the head and it starts going into a curl. There are certain vertices that I start to push down more because it covers it from those angles. It starts to curl and it starts to look like it's covering it at those angles. There's also the fact that you can twist the card as well. It all depends on your certain needs, but I just curl them because there's no need to twist it when you've already curled them, and you know, like, now you don't really need like that whole like crisscross look with the hair cards when they're curled like that. So, you know, I ended up curling these and tapering them, and they ended up looking more like anime hair. And you'll notice a lot of this stuff looks really weird at the moment. Like, it looks like it has no direction or no purpose. That's a lot of the majority of me tweaking. In the final result, you'll see that it's more purposed. It has, like, it looks like it's been layered. That's ultimately what I did when I started tweaking. And you can see right here, I actually deleted half of the hair card. Do that, you know, if you want to save time, you want to kill time, just delete half the hair card. And then re-UV it and put the roots more towards the part that you deleted. Then here I just drag the roots up all the way up to where you can't see them anymore. And I don't really worry about where the roots are. They are above the head, but I don't really worry about them because you're never going to see them. And yeah, right here we are doing a test. We're grabbing everything and we're just doing a test to check the render, because I really want to check the render. I want to see what it looks like. I want to see what I'm missing, what I need to fix, because it's been a while. It's been a while since I checked the render. So I send it off, and then it, you know, make sure you're selecting only the hair when you export, because Blender likes to export everything. And here we are. You see there's a lot of empty space, but once we turn off the culling for each piece, of course you don't have to do this with the hair cap. You can cull the back faces on the hair cap, doesn't really matter. But now we're just like putting the textures on there, or putting the material on there, and it's going to show us what it looks like. Now it looks fine, it looks okay right now, but it still looks a little bit flat. The top of the head looks really flat. There's not a lot of like layering going on between the hair cards. So ultimately, again, that's something that I fixed by curling the hair cards more, and also adding more layer, and also duplicating the cards and pushing them down, pushing the midsection down instead of up. Instead of bubbling it out, I bubble it down, and it ultimately starts looking better. Here again, we're just adding another layer, and we're making that part a little bit closer together. You don't want to close the part completely, because realistic hair doesn't close all the way. The parts don't close all the way. You actually have a little bit of a gap in the part. But again, if you wanna close that up, you can. I've seen anime hair where it's like the part is actually closed. And yeah, just continuing to edit, just continuing to bubble it out more, and this is where I start to push the M down a little bit more, because I didn't really like it too much. And I did duplicate off the bangs, and these we actually made smaller, so that they look like they're clumping more. So I ended up breaking these off, making them smaller, and then bubbling them out more to make it look like it's more clumped, like it's more clumped hair pieces. And I'm doing that to the middle of the bangs as well, just making it look like it's clumping. That's what you're doing essentially when you're doing that, is you're making it look like the hair is kind of clumping, and it's like one clump. Hopefully my pop filter is working. Yeah, I accidentally alt-tabbed right there. And again, just adding a few more, bubbling that out a little bit. This ultimately did not add a lot of triangles to the end result. It came out to be around like 15,000 or so triangles, so it's not that bad. It's not bad at all. It's actually low compared to a lot of game characters these days. Okay. So I did post this to Twitter, and I did get some feedback. I do appreciate a lot of the feedback that I got. Again, one of the feedback was that I needed to break the symmetry. I am going to break the symmetry, but not until I've posed it, because I don't want to make it harder on myself. I don't want to make it harder on myself by, rigging something that's not symmetrical. I'd rather rig it while it's symmetrical, or, finish everything while it's symmetrical, and then, at the end, just kind of... yeah, and I am using a mirror modifier with clipping on some of these. The hair cap, I believe I am using clipping on it. It does mess with the normals when you do a clipping, but it wasn't affecting the normals for the cap, so I just left it. But you want to watch out for that when you're using clipping for the mirror modifier. You want to watch out for that, because ultimately what might happen is that you might get some really messed up. Here's where I duplicate it, and now I'm pushing these down to create a layered or a thicker card that's going to cover more. Somebody in the comments in my last video was asking me what I do to get the back faces, and at the end of the day, I end up just turning on culling. But I wanted hair cards that were going to cover more, so I duplicated some of these hair cards, and this was a very picky, choosy process, because I was looking at it from all angles, and I was trying to see what coverage I got, and I picked a few of them that were too thin in my opinion, and I ended up bubbling them down a little bit, or duplicating them and creating thickness with them. Working with the bangs, again, just going in there and just covering more of the bang area, and working with the UVs and checking those. Now here I am just trying to get a little bit more layering to the bangs as well. Again, layer after layer, trying to get it to look better. Covering more of the part, getting it closer to the original hair. Again, I have a lot of practice that I need to do with this, but again, it's something that it makes it easier, just knowing that all you really have to do is just model it out, and then do this. It just makes it a lot easier just knowing this. But it's just going to be practice. If you saw my original anime hair modeling video, you can see that this is significantly better than that one. So just been practicing and getting this workflow to be a lot better. And another question I got was, what's my favorite out of the 3 videos that I posted recently of making hair? And this is by far my favorite, because this is the most accurate. You can see the textures, you can see what you're doing. I've tried Maya, I've tried Houdini, I've tried ZBrush, I've tried a lot of programs for creating hair, and this is by far my favorite, because you can see what you're doing. I hate the aliasing in a lot of other programs where their transparency isn't as accurate as this. This is probably the most accurate transparency I've seen in a viewport. So this is by far my favorite. Not to mention, I don't like placing curves. I hate it. Trying to work with curves and trying to get curves to look right, I hate that. So modeling the hair like this is more natural, because this is just what I'm used to. I'm used to just putting it, cutting it, slicing it, positioning it, and then just figuring out where to put it next. That's ultimately my favorite thing to do, and this is perfect for me. You can use the curve system if you want, but this for me is perfect because I like to do this. And as you can see, I'm just kind of creating another one and then putting it closer to the root, adding another layer to the back. This is a little bit thinner of a card, so it's just kind of like helping with that look, that pulling out the hair look, making it look like has more volume. You'll notice that I don't use a really thick one because I don't know. I think I end up changing it to a thick texture, but I don't use the thick ones when I'm kind of trying to bring out more of the volume, because the thick ones are mainly used for like the base shape. You want to use the thin ones for like bringing out more of the, making it look like it's layered, if that makes any sense. I'm trying to make it look like it's more layered. Yeah, this is going to be a longer video. It's probably going to be about, I don't know, like an hour and 15 minutes. But, yeah, here we are just adding another one, adding the transition between the two, and trying to get that to look pretty decent. Checking it again from all angles. You want to make sure that you've covered all of your angles. Before you place another one, make sure that you're looking at it from every angle. Sounds tedious, but if you don't, you're gonna find out like later on that you could have covered more, or there's not enough covered, and then you're gonna be like, why did I do that? Yeah, this is after I got the feedback too from Twitter. I was like, yeah, you know what, you're right, I need to add more. Didn't look very good, so I was adding more to it. I was trying to like think of like where would the hair go if it was coming from this part section and then going past the horns. Like would it look proper if I made this go past the horns? It's very, very difficult to make hair with horns, and also cat ears or things like that, because it's like, you know, where does the hair go? Where do you place it? But yeah, this is all I'm doing, is I'm just modeling it and curling the hair cards more, making sure that when I curl them, I'm not overlapping the textures and that I'm hiding the fact that it's flat. You don't want the hair cards to be super flat. You want them to be thick looking. So you bubble the middle and then you start to kind of hide the flatness by pulling down the sides to the other ones, and usually that hides it pretty decent. And then, you know, getting used to UVing. Getting used to, you know, if you need to re-UV it to make these strands as thick as the other ones. Because if you have like a bunch of like random thick ones that are like ones that are really thick and then the other ones that are like really thin, it'll look really weird. So you want to kind of make sure that you're cutting it and then UVing it according. And this is where I start to, you know, pull down the sides a little bit more to hide a little bit more of the fact that the cards are flat. I used a mirror modifier on that because I was just like, screw it. Don't worry about using a mirror modifier. It's perfectly fine. Okay. Yeah, right here I noticed that there was a little bit of a gap in between the card. So you wanna make sure that you don't have those gaps in there, because if you do, it's gonna look really awful. It's gonna look something awful. And then again, here I kind of just duplicated it and pushed it out a little bit, Alt S to push it out a little bit, and then with the hair you want to make sure you're not overlapping and that you're flowing with the hair direction. Because when you're flowing with the hair direction, even if you get just a little bit of clipping, at least it doesn't look as bad as just like if the hair was completely going in a different direction, or even if you were slightly off and the hair was kind of overlapping, you'll be able to tell, and it'll look awful. And the more you do that, the more off it'll look. See, even if, like, you can see that thick one right there, you can see that it's not going as well. So what I do is I thin one of them out to make space for that bigger one. And ultimately that ended up starting to look a little bit better. So you want to make sure that you're not overlapping too bad and that you're going in the direction, because it's going to show up. It's definitely going to show up. So try to minimize that as much as you can. If you can't, then get rid of it and try something else. Get rid of all of the cards that are causing it and try something else. You'll notice like towards the end of the video with the hair cards that are more towards the mid and the bottom, I don't really care about that too much, again, because you're not going to see that as much as you are the top pieces. With the top pieces, I care a lot about if they're overlapping, so I'll spend, you know, roughly like 5 minutes if I have to going in there and trying to think of something else, or even just deleting it entirely to come up with a different direction, because I don't want overlapping. It looks nasty, and also, you know, again, if you get too much of that, you're gonna have a problem. It's just gonna take away from the look of the hair. Here I am again, just putting a transition piece in there. Ultimately, I do curl that transition piece more into a tapered look, because I feel like that is the 3 pieces that I put there are a little bit too blocky looking, and they're too small. They're tapered too small, so they look like they're like 3 little tiny pieces coming off of her head, when I wanted it to kind of look like it all had like the same piece, or look like it was close to the same piece. So I ended up tapering those closer together. Here I am creating what ultimately I end up deleting is a couple of like little thin ones that give it a little bit more life. You can do this. You can create like little tiny ones that give it more life to her hair. I deleted this because I was going for a certain look. If you didn't see my desktop, I'm going for that look, so I deleted these and went more for that look on my desktop, where you know, she has thicker hair in that area that I put those at. So yeah, you can do this to give it more life. You can give it, you know, to create more volume and more life in this area. So here I am just kind of adjusting it. And just like we did in the last video, all I did was I just duplicated a set of faces on an old card and then just re-UV'd it to the thinner texture of the card. Saves time instead of like constantly placing like thin hair cards on curves and shit like that. It's not good. It's kind of boring. Okay. I kind of like that, but then, you know, I was just like, it doesn't look too good. Here I am again, duplicating this off and then trying to get these to be closer. Pushing these above to, again, flow with the hair. And I'm not sure if I deleted this one or not, but yeah. You can see, yeah, I'm just kind of pushing it over and making sure that it just transitions better right here. Pushing it in, you know, pushing it to be a little bit more thicker. Just adding another like clump layer to it. And again, closing that part more. And then pushing that up a little bit more to cover more. And then tapering this, bringing the sides down again to cover the fact that it's flat. Don't want it to look flat. I want it to look like it has volume. And just fixing the part, making sure that it looks like a natural part. Again, I'm not like a hairstylist. I don't. And then here I am closing that gap between the two because I wanted that to be a little bit more closed. It looked weird having like a large area like there that didn't match the other layers, so I ended up pushing those closer together. But yeah, I'm not a hairstylist, so you know, it's again, it's just practice. This is all just practice. I'm making this video to help people understand that hair cards don't have to be scary. They don't have to be like, oh my god, you know, I have to figure out this whole thing behind hair cards. Honestly, it's, for me, this is like the best. This is the best workflow for me because I just absolutely love working like this. It may not be like the industry standard way, but it's definitely working for me so far. I'm not having any issues with what this looks like. But who knows? Maybe when I get better at it, maybe I'll come back to these videos and be like, ew, these are ugly. Yep, there I am, just duplicating that off and making it thick, and then duplicating this one under and pushing it, pushing the mid down, and then as you can see, I'm bubbling it down more. I ended up trying to delete that, but you could totally tell that it was deleted, so I was like, oh crap. So I ended up trying to put it back, and I was like, no, you know what? It's just better to go all the way up. And here I am, just editing it, pushing it down. And these are the ones that are going to be like mostly hiding everything. So I end up duplicating this one again and then just kind of pushing that down. And trying to make it look like a thick hair card. Right here you can see that I'm pushing these down more towards the head because that's going to cover more of the head from that angle. It's going to just look like it's more like a thicker card. Duplicated this one, doing the same thing, just kind of pushing it down. Ultimately, I did delete some of these because I felt like I didn't really need to duplicate almost every single one of them. So what I did was I just like deleted these and then I just curled the original cards more to look more like a half cylinder or like a half tube. I felt like that was the better approach to save on geometry. But it all depends on your game, what you're going for. Like, are you going for like realism? Are you going for anime? Are you going for like, you know, low poly? It all depends on your what you can do for your game, what you can do for your, you know, how much polygons you can spend. Heroic characters tend to have a lot more polygons than, you know, your average run of the mill. So maybe if this was like an NPC, then I would definitely go in there and I would want to save some resources. But this is something that you're gonna look at. You're gonna be looking at up close. You're gonna be looking at it, you know, checking out the textures and things like that. So I wanted to make the hair look good, you know, but I also wanted to make it look like I kind of knew what I was doing. If that makes any sense? But yeah. And just duplicating this one off, making another layer. You know, again, these layers are really helping with the volume. They're helping make it look like the hair's more thicker than what it naturally, or what it is, with just polyplanes. So it's all just an illusion. Creating that thickness with curling the hair tube, or excuse me, curling the hair card, and then pushing the roots and transitioning it more towards the other ones. More towards the other cards. As you can see, I'm like pushing the verts, the side verts, I'm pushing them either in or, you know, out to kind of flow with the other hair. So if a hair card is too narrow, you're going to definitely notice it because it's in its own space. You'll see it. You'll definitely notice that it's in its own space. But if you take those verts and you start sliding them more towards the other cards, definitely, you know, make sure you're not overlapping, but slide them more like this over towards the other cards, then they'll start to look like they're transitioning, like you know, that they're breaking off, and they actually look like they're naturally breaking off instead of you know, just duplicating it and then placing it. So that's what I'm doing, and then I just kind of push the sides down again to make it look like it's just a thicker, you know, more natural looking hair clump. I also ended up twisting slightly. I twisted a couple of these. I took the tips and I twisted them towards her face a little, just a tad bit more, because it just looked like it was more naturally kind of flowing in that direction. So I just kind of twisted them towards her a little bit more, the ones on the sides, and that ultimately started to make them look a little bit better. Here I'm adding the tiny little. These I don't really care about, but I'm adding like the little tiny tufts of hair underneath her, just because like if her hair were to ever fly up, then you'd be able to see like something there that had volume. But ultimately, I don't really care about these because, again, these are something you're never going to see. but I wanted something to be there. I wanted, you know, to have like a little bit of short hair going on right there. So I created a little bit of short hair tufts. I ended up duplicating these and then just kind of sliding them over and just kind of placing them in different directions, trying to transition them. They kind of look like garbage, but if I had like more clumping in my hair textures, then that would be a little bit better. But ultimately they get the job done for them just being like little hair pieces that help hide or, you know, help create the illusion that there's like a little bit of more you know, hair going on right there instead of just like it being smacked to the head. And again, I end up you know, using the mirror modifier to help out. Again, that's definitely something you can do in this area, because again, nobody's gonna see this and they're not gonna know that it's mirrored. Yeah, and then I just kind of, you know, try to adjust these a little bit more, taper them a little bit, fray them out a little bit. I also duplicated them and then deleted the tips. Yeah, I duplicated the pieces without the tips, and then I re-UV'd those to be, you know, to have the tapering at the end. And then I kind of pushed the tips out to make it look like it's you know, fraying off of her, so that way it looks more natural. And I'm re-UVing it to make these just a little bit thicker, and then I'm tapering these ones. See what they'll look like when they're tapered. And I think I add like an extra bit in between them, an extra edge in between some of them to help taper them out a little bit more, or to curl out a little bit. Yeah, and I ended up tapering these a bit more too. And then I ended up duplicating one because I noticed there was a little bit of a space right there, so I ended up duplicating it, and then, you know, just doing the natural thing, like just kind of making it look like it's supposed to be there. The reason why I duplicated it is because if I were to push the other one up even further, not only would it have made the strands look even thicker, but also it would have just looked really weird to just have like a flat surface through there. So I wanted to have like more of a bump in this area to make it look like it was more like it was like naturally coming out. And yeah, here we are, just fiddling more with the bottom, and again trying to get more of the sides to look natural. Here I am pushing more down towards the little bits that I just created, making it look like a thick tube. And then I did it to this one as well. I think I did it to most of these, and then I ended up deleting some of them. But yeah, you can do it this way if you don't have the ability to make the backface culling, or turn off backface culling. You can do it this way, but it does add geometry to the stuff, so you have to be careful on that, because if you're saving on geometry, you want to, you don't want to do that. And I also did make these a little bit fatter as well. I'm not sure if you guys noticed that in the teaser, but I did make these fatter. I did increase the size of the middle of these a little bit more to make them look like they were more tapered, because that gave them ultimately more coverage. But you have to be careful on that, because when you do make the midsection of these fatter, then they could overlap into the other ones, so you have to be worried about that one. And here I am just trying to create some flyaways. I did a little bit of testing with the flyaways to see if I could make them look a little bit decent. But again, I did like them, but I did also delete them because I was going for a certain look in this area of the sideburns. So I did delete these. You can see I am twisting them in the other direction though. I'm twisting them perpendicular. I'm twisting everything but the roots. Mostly the roots and a little bit more of the vertices from the roots. I'm twisting all of those except for the roots to be perpendicular, because it just gives it more life. It looks, you know, if you look at it from the front, it'll make it look like it's, you know, it's hair. You could do that a lot of times actually. You can and see here I am grabbing the faces and kind of just adjusting it. And I think I tried to make flyaways with this one as well. And here I am just kind of like pushing it out and making it look like it's more like flyaway looking. Just kind of adjusting it out a little bit. Because hair is very random. It doesn't all just like stay in these little clumps, you know. It's very, very, very random. Here I am making this one perpendicular a little bit, and you know, just giving it, making it look from the front view, making it look like it's actually like a flyaway from the front. Okay. Now you'll notice that the hair in the back is very chaotic. I ended up, that's one of the things that I mostly tweaked, was the chaotic look, making it look like the hair is kind of not bouncy and that it's kind of just falling down. I fixed that by kind of sloping it from where the hair tubes kind of curl out, from where the curling starts, and then I kind of tapered it down towards where they are coming out from the bottom of the head. And I kind of like made a slope from that to make it look like it's more bouncy and to make it look like it has more life. Right now, when they get longer as they go down, they kind of look like they're losing bounce and losing life. So I ended up shortening those and making them bounce a little bit more. Like, yeah, as you can see right there, they kind of look like they're just kind of like fading down. So yeah, here I am making more transition pieces, making more randomness. I put these ones behind the ear, making it look like they're coming out from the ear. Just this is all just like something I wasn't sure what it was gonna look like. This is all just testing, and you know, if it looks bad, I would delete them. That's why I keep them separate. If it doesn't look right, then I'll just delete them, and that'll be that. And then I can go on with my day. But you know, I wanted to have something in this area because it looked like there was nothing there. And I think I actually changed the textures to be more thicker strands, but I did want something here because it just looked like there was nothing there, you know, looked like there was absolutely nothing there. So I ended up changing that. I also ended up changing the direction of these a little bit more to go with the flow of the other ones towards the back. Yeah, see, I'm doing the mistake of pulling these further down to try to blend them with the ones that are already down, and that was my big mistake. I should have like took a second to look at it, and then I would have noticed that that one was too large. The one that I pulled it towards was too large, and that they're just too far down. Then I would have saved myself a lot of the tweaking hassle. But you know, when you get into the groove and you've got like a pattern going, you don't really want to stop, but I should have stopped because I would have saved myself a lot of the heartache. Okay, so this is where I stopped recording, and then I started tweaking. After I did the render, I started tweaking, but I turned back on the render, or excuse me, I turned back on the recording. You can see it's tweaked a little bit more, but ultimately I do go in there and I start to tweak it a hell of a lot more. Making these ones short and, you know, giving them more bounce and more curl, and pushing and pulling the other ones down. So here I am just kind of going in there and pushing and pulling and you know, curling more of these. And one of the reasons why I deleted a lot of those like thick tubes is because it was really hard to, you know, edit these where they all had like doubles. So I ended up just deleting the doubles and just curling them more and twisting them just a little bit to help. So as you can see, I'm twisting it in that direction. That's the direction that I'm talking about. I started twisting them towards the face a little bit more to help. So if you were like looking at the character from the front or even from a 3/4, then a lot of that area would be like covered. So it would look like it was more covered. And you can see like they're all twisting towards the face a little bit. That's what I did. I ended up just twisting them more towards the face and then curling the hair cards a little bit more towards the face, and that helped from that angle. So that's essentially what you want to do, is you want to like curl them a little bit more towards the face. And I'm making the ones that are like the mostly on the bottom, I'm making those the shortest, because again, like I'm creating a slope with the hair. I'm creating a look. So I wanted those to kind of fade up towards the main curls of the head, to make it look like it's just make it look like it has sense, you know, make it look like it makes sense. So now I'm looking at it and I'm trying to see, okay, well, what can I change? And then I wanted to give the top where all these pieces are up here, I wanted it to give it more volume, to make it look like it was more puffed out, make it look like it was more natural. And again, I pushed them up, but then I also just kind of blended them a little bit more. And then, you know, I didn't delete this one. I actually ended up liking that one, so I ended up you know, pushing it just sideways a little bit more. And that definitely helped, you know, because I was like, wow, okay, this is, you know, it's tapered, but it's nice. And I also had a couple of them that looked like they were flat from a certain view, so I didn't want them to look flat, like they were poking, like right here, they look a little bit flat, and I didn't want that, so I ended up changing it to look like it was more, you know, curled. Pushing those a little bit closer together and then pulling these down, make it look like it's connected. And same with this, just kind of pushing them closer together, adjusting the texture so they look like they're connected instead of like two separate pieces. And same with this, just kind of, and then I added another loop to the root to puff out the root a little bit more, to make it look like it was more of a natural like puffiness to the root. And for the underneath, again, this is what we talked about before, just going underneath and like pushing out the midsection a little bit more to cover more from that angle. And here I am just adjusting these to be a little bit shorter and a little bit more individual, if that makes any sense. But essentially that's all there is to it. You know, you just go in there and you kind of create these cards, and you try to make them look as individual as you can, but also maintaining the look. And I tried to also right here, I tried to make it look like there was no like weird stepping in the part where it's like, you know, you have the part and then it cuts off, or it steps, you know, or the part gets wider all of a sudden, and then, you know, and then it just like gets shorter all of a sudden. So I tried to make it look like it was blending nicely with the part. And then again, right here, I'm just kind of making the bangs like a little bit better. I feel like the bangs were just a little bit kind of too blocky. So I ended up just adding a few edges and kind of curling them a bit more and making them more kind of like naturally shaped. And then I hung those down, but then I was like, no, that's a little bit too far. So I adjusted the textures instead of doing it that way. Okay. And just, you know, this is all just like fine tuning, really. It's all just like tweaking it and then fine tuning it. We already laid down a base we're just going through and we're just like kind of checking it, and then just kind of like you know, feeling it out. See, like that card looks really flat from that angle. I ended up deleting that, and then now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna make these curled even more. We're just gonna try to hide it as much as we can more. Also making this wider. We're gonna try to widen it out and then make it make it more curled. And then here I am just trying to pull it out a little bit more to make it look like it's like the leading card right in this area. Like it's leading the focus. Okay, and then I duplicate that and I kind of pull it down to kind of give life in this area. So you can do that as well. You can just like duplicate one and then pull it down and then just kind of, you know, give a little bit more life. Again, just make sure you're not overlapping the textures. You know, you want to, because what I did was I pulled it down and then I pushed it in a little bit, and then just kind of adjusted it that way, but also making sure that I didn't overlap the textures. You don't want to overlap the textures. If you do that, then you're gonna have a problem again, because it'll be definitely noticeable. Right here, as you can see, I'm twisting these. The flyaways are just kind of like, I don't really do like the curly flyaways. I was doing like the kind of straight flyaways. I should really explore more with like curling the flyaways and everything. But here I'm just kind of like doing like just like a boring natural straight flyaway kind of look. And again, I duplicated that, shift the textures, and now I'm just kind of blending it. Just the same old stuff, really. Adjusting these because I felt like they were just a little bit too thin, or excuse me, thick. So I adjusted that, and just going through it, checking it. And I hid all of those so it would make it easier to select the ones, the planes in the outliner of Blender. Then I duplicated that off, or excuse me, not duplicated it. I combined everything, and then we're again just checking it inside of Marmoset to make sure that the render looks good. I ended up also changing the texture to help, because this is going to be like the natural texture that she's going to have. And again, I'm just kind of checking it, see what I could change, what I could make better, what pieces I can make different. This is where I'm actually taking the sphere and I'm transferring the normals from the sphere to the hair. Again, this is going to help you with your anisotropic. It's going to connect all of the anisotropic together instead of it being separate. You know, it's going to treat the pieces of hair like they're all one, and it's going to make the anisotropic go through the hair more natural, like it's actual natural hair. I didn't do that for the final because yeah, I'm still working on this hair and I want to perfect it before I'm actually done with it. But this is the final part of the video, or this is the final video. Yeah, right now we're just transferring the normals. I've never done this inside of Blender before, so it's like I'm just trying to check to see what I'm doing wrong or right or whatever. But ultimately, I think I get it to work. It just looks weird. And then I end up exporting that. I actually subdivided the sphere once to see if it would help. And then I re-exported it. Okay. And as you can see now, you can see the anisotropic is working as one. It's treating everything as if it's one, you know, mesh, instead of it being multiple meshes. So it really helps with that. Checking the lighting, and then I'm also adjusting the roughness to be smoother. At the end of this video, I'm actually going to do a walkthrough of how I made the material so that you guys can get a look at what I did for the material. But there are different things that people do for the materials, so this isn't the end all be all. But yeah, here's the final material. After I turned it off and then adjusted it and then turned it back on. Stupid me. But yeah, I just made a little bit less roughness. And this is where I noticed a couple of things in the hair that I could do a little bit better. So yeah, all I did was just, you know, adjust the roughness. The only thing that's different is the light behind her was a lot brighter, and it covered more area. That's why the hair looked like that. But yeah, then I just go in here, and this is going to be the final tweaks of the hair. So just kind of going through very, very thoroughly and just checking what I can do to be what I could do to make it look a lot better. And adding some subdivisions to kind of round it out. Again, you don't want to add too many subdivisions to these because they are using subdivision surface. And again, if you are trying to save on polygon count, you don't want to do that. You want to keep it low and only subdivide in the areas that are too low poly. Or, you know, subdivide in the areas that aren't giving you the shape that you need. And we're just doing the final tweaks, you know, just going through here, adjusting, twisting, pulling edges down to make it look more believable. I added a subdivision in there to help with the curling. Making sure that these don't look too flat, because these are the ones that were like really flat looking, so I ended up pulling the sides down to make them look less flat. Okay. Alright, so this is going to be the final tweaks for the hair. It's going to be a lot more sped up at this point, because honestly, there's not really much more to go over. At the end of the video, I will go over how I set up my material, and I think also during the video you saw how I set up the hair cap. So that'll be another video explanation. But yeah. This has been Rodeska, and I really hope that this has helped you out. This was a pain to put together, so I really do hope that this helped you in understanding my process for doing the hair. As you can see, again, right here, I'm just kind of adding perpendicular strays, making sure that the strays are staying put at the root and then kind of twisting as they get further out to make it look like it's, you know, just couple of strays falling off of the head. But yeah, that's essentially all I do. I really hope this has helped you. Please leave a like if it has, comment if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next video. If you have any other suggestions for what you guys want to see on the channel, please don't hesitate to ask, because yeah, I'm always learning new shit every single day. Alright, so take care, you guys, and peace.